Mic check. Peas and carrots, peas and carrots. Pineapple pizza. Hi, I'm Ashley Daigle, and this is Advice from the Cheerbrarian. Never heard that word before? That's because I smushed two words together because I felt like it. This week, we're going to do what we always do. Mix a dollop of advice to improve your life, born from a few of my successes and a boatload of my mistakes, with the book recommendation of the week, unearthed by my voracious love of reading, from self-help to historical fiction and everything in between. Today, I am here to air out my grievances towards food rules and the ever-changing landscape of nutrition. It feels impossible to figure out what to eat and what's good for you. It's enough to make anyone scream, and not for ice cream. Myself and returning co-host Charles are going to talk about food and nutrition and try to make heads or tails of it. If you like what you hear, and I really hope you do, please, pretty please, with 2 cherries on top, tell 2 people about this podcast and send them a link to an episode that you enjoyed, because direct word of mouth is huge for a little pod like mine. And now, let's get into it. Okay, I am delighted to yet again welcome someone into the studio with me so I can give my usual unsolicited advice, but this time to a real live person. So welcome to our returning guest, Charles.
Hello.
Hello. How are you today, Charles?
I'm doing pretty good.
Doing pretty good. Great. Love to hear it. So tell us on this podcast where we also talk about books, what are you reading now? And do you like
Uh,
it?
I'm currently listening to a book called The Women of Troy by Pat Barker.
Ooh.
And I would say it's good,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know.
Okay.
Um,
That's an
I'm like
undecided vote.
I'm on this unintended Greek kick
Yeah.
where I initially was listening to a book called Song of Achilles, um,
Yes.
which I really liked her prose, and I wanted to read another one of her books,
Mm-hmm.
Circe, but it wasn't available. So then I
Sure.
found this one, which is like, well, not this one, The Silence of the Girls, which is
Okay.
another one by Pat Barker.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I found out that it has a sequel, which is a book I'm
Oh,
reading now.
okay.
And so her writing, I mean, it does a really good job of just like talking about the roughness of being a woman
Got
in
it.
Greek society,
Yeah.
particularly like
Wasn't great. Wasn't
yeah.
good. Yeah.
And so some of her bluntness is a little bit much for me,
Okay.
but overall it's been good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Overall good. A little bit of a in the middle vote, but you're in the middle of the book, right? You
yeah,
don't really know till the end. So, okay, cool.
exactly.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Very intriguing. Love a Greek story. And then you've been here before, but what, if anything, would you like listeners to know about you?
I don't think I have anything new today. I
Yeah.
can go back to the other episode.
Yeah, go back. If you don't know, go listen. But let's see. What did you say in the last one? You gave the appropriate ranking because you were like, you have your kids, but you put
Yep.
them, and you gave
The
precedence to the,
2-year-old, the 6-year-old, or 6-month old, and then
yes.
work.
And then work, which was the right order because you got to
Yeah.
put the toddler and then the baby that's kind of just chilling and then work. And then you work as a doctor, which is pretty
Yes.
cool, which is
Yes.
relevant today. You're going to solve all of my problems. I'm very excited.
We'll see.
Yeah, okay. So today we're here to talk about ditching food rules and demystifying nutrition. Some pretty food pun intended meaty topics. Why are you interested in talking to me about this today, Charles?
I guess the question of interested or the statement interested is maybe not the best. I like
Mm.
super hate it when patients talk to me about nutrition in the office.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Partially because there's just so much misconceptions.
Yes.
And so there's a lot to like go through with
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Which is why I'm willing to talk about this with you.
Got it. We're already off to a great start. I'm like, why are you interested in this? You're like, I'm not. I hate it. I'm like, perfect. Let's dive in. Okay. So I am interested in talking about it because I have always been obsessed with food. I love to eat. It is just, something that's important to me. I just love it as a hobby. I love cooking. I actually, you may not know this, I considered at one point becoming a nutritionist, but then I was like, ooh, that's like a lot of like Science. I don't know about that. So that never got off the ground. But what inspired me specifically to do this episode was reading Stanley Tucci's book, Taste My Life Through Food. Have you read that one?
I have not. I've heard of that one though.
So Stanley Tucci, America's sweetheart, just a wonderful man and a great storyteller. And it has an Italian background, and so he talks about that and gives his recipes. But the thing that was interesting to me as I read this book is he eats a lot of pasta. Like he eats the food of his like culture. And I was like, wow, he eats a lot of pasta, which to me was weird because pasta is a thing I don't eat a lot of because you're, quote, not supposed to, right? And I was like, wait, are there people that are just like living their life like Stanley Tucci and enjoying food and not worrying about it a lot? Uh-oh, maybe I'm the problem. So that's sort of what like made me want to do this topic. And I thought it was important right now because we're getting into the holidays. And like y'all, listen, there are two holidays coming up, depending on when you hear this, but like when we're recording, Thanksgiving, and then you've got Christmas, Hanukkah, the whole season, New Year's, right? Decadent, food, 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 food. And then what happens in January, Charles? What's January supposed to be about? Pop quiz.
Taking it all away.
Taking it up.
Sadness.
Right. January. That was great. So we have all these food things, high pressure, family, friends, whatever. And then in January, it's like, get a gym membership, make a new person. And you're like, why are we like this? Why are we like this? This is stupid. So we're
Yep.
here, me and Charles reluctantly, to try to break it down for you and maybe give you a little clarity. So first of all, I wanted to talk about like what are like when I say food rules, what does that mean? So I'm wondering like what are for you, Charles, what are some of the food rules that you internalized? Things maybe from like how you grew up or things you've heard about from patients about you have to this or you don't this and you're like no 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 no.
Um, Definitely uh limiting carbs.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't eat bread, pastas,
Mm-hmm.
anything that contains starches.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you should um never eat sugar. Um, and that there are a lot of I guess we'll use the term diet plans in this because that's
Mm-hmm.
what we classify them as.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them, and all of them are great. Um, Even though they're not.
Awesome. Yes. So basically every but none of those are real like these are rules that people have said, well you're supposed to or not supposed to. These are not rules that you're like, yes, as a doctor I tell you don't eat sugar, don't eat this, don't eat that. Like none of that is true unequivocally for every person, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So and we're a little different in age, but the 90s, the early 2000s, what a wild time to be alive as a human being, trying to understand food because we were obsessed sugar, right?
Hmm.
Calories were king, fat, we're scared of fat.
Hmm.
And it was just like all those things stick with you. Like what was oh my gosh, margarine, right?
Oh,
Yogurt
yep.
butter, is margarine or yogurt butter better than other butter, Charles?
Um, I mean, it's all a fat source, so it doesn't really change
Not
much.
it doesn't really change much. This is just this I was hoping this episode was gonna leave me hopeful. I think at the end I want to be like, cool, nothing matters. I'm just gonna go eat a bucket of Crisco. No, we're gonna be fine. So I wanted to share. So here are some food rules that I know have stuck with me. So I grew up eating meat and two sides. And so in my house, this often meant like shake and bake, can of green beans, can of corn, whatever. So much so that today, when I cook a meal, I feel like it needs to be. I've morphed it a little, like maybe protein in two sides, but like, or there's got to be protein involved. But like, if I'm trying to make like chicken, I can't just be like chicken and also salad. I'm like there has to be two things. Like I can do it obviously. I'm not like it's not impossible, but I really struggle cuz that's what I knew like my whole life growing up. And I know my husband and I were talking about this a little bit earlier cuz he knew I was recording it and his thing was first you eat your meat and then you eat your fries. And that was also, growing up, they were trying to make sure like don't fill up on the fries and the milkshake before you eat the rest of the food, right? Which makes
Mhm,
sense,
mhm.
right? That's not
Yeah.
bad. You want to make sure the kid you're eating the thing that has more. I mean, we're talking like probably McDonald's, but it's the burger's got
Right,
protein
right.
in this and that. So much so that on our was our first date on our date, I know he got a burger and he eats like the entire burger and then gets and I was like, "Oh, you're eating your whole burger for your fries." And he like looked at me and was like, and I didn't know at the time like that was horrifying to him. And it's like this stuff sticks with us. So like is there your answer to this may simply be no, but like what can we do about the stuff that we've internalized from how we were raised that has carried over? Or like the clean plate club. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yes.
Clean
Definitely
your
Clean
plate.
Plate Club.
That's
Yeah, that's
bad,
the thing.
right? That's
Yeah,
bad. Don't do
yeah,
that.
definitely bad.
How do we move past this stuff? What's the answer? Tell us. Tell me.
I mean, the answer is being self-aware, and that's
Okay.
really the only way that we're able to move past this.
Yeah. All right. So you heard it here first, everybody. So take a look, think about, are there things that you're doing and how can you maybe do it differently? You don't have to keep doing it just because just because you couldn't leave the dinner table when you were 12 until you finished your plate. Hear it from me and Charles. You can do it now. You can be full.
Yes.
You can go away. Okay. So, really simple question for you, Charles. What does healthy eating mean? Just tell me what to do. Tell me what that means.
Um, I will say that like the thing that has the best scientific evidence
Hmm.
behind it is eating the Mediterranean lifestyle, um,
Interesting. Okay.
which
Okay.
focuses on fruit, vegetables,
Mhm.
um, and then limited meats. So protein from vegetable sources in general, or fishes and stuff like that. So that is the overall best evidence.
But they're eating carbohydrates, right? Are
Yes,
they
they're eating
not? They are.
carbohydrates. Yeah.
Okay, but it's fruit first or
I mean,
but like
fruits and vegetables, same, even plain.
got it. So fruits and vegetables and less protein. But everybody now is saying you have
Less
to have all the
meat protein,
Oh, okay. Okay. See, I
or at
wasn't
least, yeah, yeah.
less meat protein. Okay. I don't know if I like this advice. Do you have anything else? I'm just kidding. Okay, but again, you said the most scientifically proven, right? But that doesn't
Yes,
mean it doesn't mean it's going to work for me more than like cuz my body's my body, right? So you also have
correct.
to take this stuff with a grain of more food puns, salt.
Yes.
Okay, so Mediterranean. So I try to do I came across the concept of intuitive eating, which is all about trusting your body to make food choices that feel good for you without judging yourself or the influence of diet culture. And so I'll talk about there's a book I read about it. I'll talk about that in the back half of the show. But I'm interested in what you think about intuitive eating, Charles.
Um, I guess I'd want to know a little bit more information on
Oh.
what you classify that as.
Yeah, well, so I guess it was sort of a looking at the literature, it seemed like it was like a backlash almost to the diet culture, right? So the book came out in like 2004. And so it's basically trying to push back against all this restriction and all this can't have this, do have this. And so it's more about feeling like what feels good to my body today, like pushing back against the full plate club, right? So you don't have to finish the food because the food is on your plate at your house or at a restaurant, but like I feel full, I'm going to stop now. Versus like, oh, I have to eat because it's noon. It's like, well, if you're not hungry, eat at 1 p.m. So it's like those kind of things. So I don't know if that's something that y'all, I mean, I guess it's not a hot topic in your practice, but like how does that strike you as a like tell me I'm doing a good job. That's what I'm saying.
Like with other things,
Hmm.
I think that is something that would work well for some people, not for everybody.
Okay.
And that depends on, once again, kind of people's relationship with food to begin with.
Yeah.
Because people don't always have the best intuition when it comes to their relationship with food.
Got it.
But that is certainly a good avenue for some people, I would say.
Cool. So I'm going to give myself an A for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Great. So like when somebody come, I know you said you hate when they come in and tell you about it, but like when somebody walks in the door and they're like, "Help me, Dr. Madden. I don't know what to do." Like, what's your baseline advice for like nutrition, diets, healthiness? Like, how do you tell people to get going?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that, oh, besides for just like encouraging more fruits and vegetables,
Hmm.
focusing on leaner meats or fish, and then like non-meat proteins.
Hmm.
The other biggest thing is portion sizes, because like
Mm,
America's biggest downfall is our like super biggie Mac, way too large portions.
right.
And if we are able to better understand what a reasonable portion is for a lot of foods, then we don't have to limit what we want to eat.
Yes.
We just have to pay attention to how much we're eating at a time, and
Right.
that's usually the biggest issues that people run into.
Yeah.
Or kind of the vice versa, they're restricting too much and they're just starving all the time, which isn't beneficial for them either.
No. And they can actually I think this is right. That can actually like if your goal is weight loss, which like that doesn't have to be a goal, but if that's something that you're trying to work on, if you're too restrictive, that can actually make it harder to lose weight, right?
Yes, at some point, yeah.
Right. At a certain point, because then your body's like, "Uh-oh, we're starving. Don't shed
Yeah.
anything. Hold on to everything, guys." I want to ask you a question because you have said twice about how did you phrase it? You said like non-meat proteins. So I think depending on sort of like your experience, that may be something that people are like, okay, but like what? So like what are examples of these non-meat proteins we can eat that are good for
Yeah.
us? Mhm.
So pretty common ones would be like dairy products, so cheeses, yogurts.
Wait, cheese is
Um,
good. Everybody, Charles just said, eat as much cheese as you want. Go get a bunch of cheese. Yes. Cheese is
and
my favorite.
then yes, you have your plant proteins, so a lot of
Mhm.
like soy, lentils, beans, all
Okay.
have a lot of protein in them. And then nuts as well.
Mhm.
Those are going to be your most common sources of non-meat proteins.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm so excited about this cheese thing. But I'm sure I should not overdo it on cheese, right? I should like, I shouldn't be
As
like
always,
every day instead of having meat and two sides, I'm going to have a, palm of my hand size piece of cheese and two sides. Don't do that, right? That's not good.
that's probably a little bit much at some point,
That's
yeah.
that's a little bit much. A little bit much at some point, he said. You heard him. Okay.
Particularly if you are sacrificing a vegetable for a chunk of cheese the size of your hand.
Yeah, very true. Okay, okay. I want to talk a minute about diets. There's a lot, and I want to be clear. Everyone has a diet. We use the word when we say, if I say diet, you think I mean a way to restrict or count or consider things. But like diet, technically, the definition of the word diet is like the stuff that you eat. So I mean like specific restrictive. So I know some of the ones that I think are more popular now. You can tell me though. I think paleo's still one people like. Intermittent fasting, I feel like is real popular. So I'm wondering like are there times where these things can work and you should try them? Like can they be done well or is it just like try to moderate, eat like a Greek? What do you think?
The biggest one I hear patients talk about is the keto diet,
Okay.
um, which um, does a, I mean, it depends on patient to patient,
Mhm.
decent job with kind of like quick weight loss.
Mhm.
But once again, whenever you start introducing carbs, it, kind of reverts back to the weight gain and also is horrible for your cholesterol. So not something I recommend patients do long term at all.
Mhm.
Um, and there is certainly some evidence when it comes to intermittent fasting. That's one of the ones
Mhm.
that I actually talk to patients about,
Okay.
um, as a better option compared to like doing other diet fads,
Mhm.
because it mimics a little bit more like what our ancestors actually went through.
Sure.
Before when we were actually like foraging our food and hunting our food, we didn't always have a meal ready, and that's what
Yeah.
our genetics is still based off of.
Mhm.
So with the intermittent fasting, that at least from what I've seen and heard, it does um, work well for a lot of patients
Mm-hmm.
if they're, able to stick with it.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. 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 So you could try it. It might work. It might not be perfect. And you should probably consult a physician, not just a thing on the internet that tells you this is going to be good. Cause it's all highly individualized, right? Like that's
Yes.
part of my struggle. Is like I cook for my family and I am, shocker if you don't know, 5'1". I'm a shorty short.
Mhm.
And my teenager is about 6 feet tall and my spouse is 6'4". So what we are eating should probably not be the same amount of food. And that can be challenging when you're like,
Yeah,
I just want to give a shout out. Like that can be hard when you're trying to feed a family and you're the person cooking and like you're like, okay, well hold on. Either I'm having too little, like who's ugh, that's tough. I just wanted to complain about that for a moment, I guess.
that's
And
a
then I
that's a
want
big
to
limitation for a lot of people.
yeah, right? So, like, there's not I don't have a solution for you other than, like we said already, like, try to be self-aware and, maybe plate size. I know plate size can actually be helpful. Like, we have like,
Yes.
going back to America stuff, you can get whatever size plates, but like my dinner plates are massive and they're just like generic, whatever was cheap at the store. Like I'm not fancy. And then we have like little salad plates. And so what I try to do is fix food on the salad plate because that's actually probably closer to the portion I need because you will fill up the plate that's in front of you, right? That's just
Yeah,
like you just. So I did good. That's good. Thank you.
that's good.
Thank you. Great. Okay. So let's talk about the holidays a little bit. What tips do you because it's a tough time. Like it's a tough time, especially if you're trying to maybe like watch what you're doing and do some of these things. Like what do you tell people? How can we help people, Charles?
Holidays, you definitely have to provide grace for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that um, there's a good possibility you're probably going to overeat.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing to do is, um, as you said, use a smaller plate to begin with, so there's
Mm-hmm.
less stuff you can cram onto a plate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Focus on sampling portions rather than um, a serving portion, I guess you would say, particularly if you're at a place that has like 50 different things you can try,
Right.
which some people are in that situation. And then know that you can always go back for seconds.
Yeah.
And the same for if you just get like too much food on your plate to begin with, you don't have to eat it all.
You don't.
Um, Leftover Thanksgiving food is fantastic, so just put it in the fridge for later.
There you go. Beautiful. That is some good tip. And just like listen. Life is too short unless you have, dietary restrictions or you have preferred not to eat certain things, you're a vegan, all those are wonderful choices. But life is too short to not eat things that you I was going to say cheese and bacon. Maybe you don't like either of those things, people. But like life is too short to not enjoy things, right? You got to enjoy your life. Don't just worry. Like I don't think people are on their deathbeds like I'm glad I'm so tiny. Like that's not people aren't grateful for that on the way out. So like
They're not.
remember to enjoy your life. Charles like they're not. I am going to drop a concept on you Charles that I have abided by and this I got this from a person we know, Miss Candace Metwire.
Okay.
I don't remember the context of this story, but I think I was complaining about food or like I have a lot of struggles with like what to eat and all this stuff. And she was like, yeah, but what about things being emotionally nutritious? And I was like, hold on a minute. What is that? And so the way she explained it to me is like, not everything is about, the calories and the sugar. Like there's other factors to consider. So if you're like, oh, I shouldn't have mac and cheese because it's pasta and it's cheese and it's not good for you, right? Sure, maybe. But does it make your heart happy? Like, is it your dish that you made that your grandma used to make? And so sometimes when I'm like, oh, should I be eating this? I'm like, throw shit out the window. But remember that, like, there is joy to be derived in food, right?
Yes.
Emotionally nutritious. Have you heard that before?
Not specifically that
Yes.
term, but
Mhm.
definitely the concept.
Right. And like like you can't use it as a catch-all to just like be like, well, this month is emotionally nutritious and I'm just going to eat platters of fried food because that's what my nana would have wanted. But like
Right.
when you're struggling in the moment, when you're like, oh, I really want to eat that cookie, but I don't know. I had a cookie yesterday. You're like, you know what? It's going to make me happy to eat this cookie. My kid and I baked cookies together. I'm going to enjoy it. So take that from me. That's from me to you, all of you out there listening. We've covered a lot of ground. We really have. There's one thing I wanted to mention though, and I'll talk about this book also more in the back half, but I wanted to make sure you know about it, Charles. Have you heard about Food Rules by Michael Pollan?
That one I think I've heard of, yes.
Which is funny because we're talking about kicking out food rules. And I'm like, here's a book
Oh,
of
we
food
are.
rules. So here's the
Kicked
thing.
off
This
there.
is why I wanted to bring this up. So Michael Pollan he wrote Omnivore's Dilemma. He's a journalist and food writer, very well renowned. And so because of that, people constantly ask him what to eat just because like that's his profession, right? And so he finally was like, look, I'm basically tired of people asking me this question. This is me putting words in his mouth. I don't know if I felt that way. But he was like, "Listen, here are my food rules. Here are my food rules." So this is his food rules, and this is 35-page book. His food rules are, um, what should I eat? He says, eat food. What kind of food should I eat? Mostly plants. How should I eat? Not too much. So eat food, mostly plants, not too much. And that basically sums up a lot of what we've been talking about today, right?
Yep.
There you go. So if you need a rule, if you're like me and you're like, okay, fine, but also I want a rule, there's your rules from Michael Pollan. And I'll get into this book more in the back half. So I guess the real stack of pancakes on this, which is great. First of all, pancakes, eat them. Delicious, emotionally nutritious.
Delicious.
We've covered a lot of ground. And what I will say as a sum up is like it is hard and it is frustrating. And as we've learned today from an actual doctor, there are no clear definitive answers, right? There's not a checklist and do it every day and you'll be healthy and everything will be great. Um, do you have any other final parting words, Charles?
Um, like with all things, what we eat is going to be very individualized,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it does come with grace for yourself, particularly, depending on what you're classifying what you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree that really want to make sure that we are getting enjoyment out of our life. So if you consider things out of your usual purview a treat, then treat yourself when you need to treat yourself,
That's right.
and just enjoy life.
Treat yourself. Yeah, that's actually one from intermittent fasting that I took away was not intermittent fasting. What's the thing I do? Intuitive eating. There we go. They both have eyes. Was that taking the word junk out of your vocabulary? Because like if like saying something is junk food, because you're like, if you really think it is junk, then why would you put it in your body? And so
Yeah.
they use that language too to say, think of it as a treat. And same thing, kids pick up language, right? So then your little kid's like, how come we're eating junk, mom? And you're like, So treating, good. Let's try not to think of things as junk. Um, and that's great. We did great once again. I do have the anecdote. So we're not going to do the lightning round today because this is not Charles's first rodeo. But I stole the sandwich question and kind of a little bit of my lightning round from the amazing Stephen Colbert because he does that with his guest on his show. And I saw a clip recently with actor Jude Law. And this is what you'll see quickly while I'm sharing it. And so they asked him his favorite sandwich. And he said, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit. And Stephen Colbert's like, what? He's like, I don't eat bread. So I'm going to say my favorite sandwich is me, my kids in the middle, and then my wife. And it's like, aw. And like partially aw, but like, can we back up? Jude Law's just like nonchalantly says, I don't eat bread. And that was horrifying. I'm horrified. So your takeaway, everybody, is unless your job is to look like Jude Law, you can eat some bread. Okay, you can eat some bread. All right, you
Unless
ready?
your guests don't like it, then maybe
Unless you
Charlie.
just you can, right? It's can is important. You don't have to eat bread, but like don't just not eat bread just because of rule. All right, we're getting off the rails. Are you ready, Charles, for some book recommendations?
I am.
So, as per usual, I'm going to give Charles his own Rex, like his personal book concierge. And I'm very excited today. Today, I've gotten way out of hand. I will be recommending 3 books
So many.
because I recommended some last time. Have you gotten into those?
I've
I
done
told.
both of them.
Wait, you already read both of them?
I did.
Oh my God.
And I loved the night circus. That was fantastic.
Okay. I won't ask you about the other one. We'll just take that win for Night Circus. Wonderful. Well, then good. That's why I got to give you three because we barely just recorded before and you've already read the other two. Okay, good. This is a good plan. All right. So I'm recommending three books. They are all by author Emily St. John Mandel. The first book is Station 11. The second book is The Glass Hotel. And the third book is The Sea of Tranquility. You should read them in that order. That is important. And I will explain. So,
Okay.
okay, so Station 11. Now, I know I also recommended to you Mad Adam, which is apocalyptic. Station 11 is also post apocalyptic. So you might
Okay.
need a minute from that. But I went to look at like what, and it's my favorite genre. And I was like, what did I say about this book in my Goodreads? And I said, this book is absolute perfection. That's a
Okay.
pretty strong recommendation. So there's a virus, it wipes people out. But what's interesting, so you're following the lives of several characters, both pre and post apocalypse. So you learn who they are now and then who they were before. And so sometimes I find multiple interlocking character arcs like distracting, but she weaves them together like so well. So it's a great book and it's a post apocalyptic book. So that's book one. Book two, Glass Hotel. So Station 11 came out 2014. Glass Hotel was 2020. And that book is contemporary. So what's interesting, that book is nothing like the other book. Everyone I talked to who read it before me was like, oh, it's really unexpected. And I was like, we'll see about that. And then I read it and was like, wow, it is very unexpected. It's like a literary inception. Like you are left kind of puzzled at the end, figuring out like what exactly it all means. And it will
Okay.
say it's very nonlinear. It's going back and forth at various spots in time from 1958 to 2029. It's kind of all over the place. I don't want to get into the plot because I don't want to spoil things.
Okay.
And then the last one is Sea of Tranquility. Now that one is science fiction. So this woman wrote the dystopian bestest best ever, one that what I would say is more contemporary, and then also a science fiction book. And have you seen the movie Booksmart, Charles?
No.
Okay. It's great. It's like a coming of age of two girls, senior of high school. And there's a scene where they're dressed to go to a party and they're just like, how dare you? How dare you take my breath away? And they're like sort of assaulting each other with compliments. And I feel like that.
I've seen that clip before.
Okay, great. So I feel like that about Emily St. John Mandel. I'm like, how dare you be such a great writer that you can write three books that are entirely different, that are different genres, that I would be less surprised if they were written by different people. Like I'm a little mad. I'm a little mad at her. And so together, but the reason you need to read them in order is that there's some interlap between Sea of Tranquility
Oh,
and Glass Hotel. And I'll say
okay.
Station 11, there's like a little connective thread, but it's not, these two are like a pair. And so I
Okay.
think if you read them in a different order, it could be interesting, but like I think they're meant to be boom, boom. And it
Definitely.
is that last book is a trippy journey across space and time and
Okay.
you will understand it all at the end, but only a little bit because
Okay.
she's just freaking phenomenal. How dare she? Emily St. John Mandel. Thank you for coming to my Emily St. John Mandel TED Talk. Does that sound like stuff you want to read? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay, great. Good answer. Charles, what a day we've had. What a day.
Yes.
I have enjoyed this. We're going to find another topic because you're the best. And I love talking to you. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Of course. Of course.
And bye bye.
Bye.
Okay, so Charles and I clearly had a lot of fun and a little bit of frustration, but we knew that from the topic. Talking about food and nutrition, and I mentioned a few books that I'm going to talk about again. So I just want to share actually some of the best insights I got from each of them. So if you never pick them up, you're still going to learn something because I have done the work for you. So the first book I mentioned was Food Rules: An Eater's Manual by Michael Pollan. It is not lost on me that the episode was titled about ditching food rules. And now I'm giving you more food rules, which seems a little counterintuitive. But this tiny book And like it's like 140 pages or something, and like every other page is like just a little picture, so it's super super short. This book sort of was guidance in the dark for me when I was really in the middle of trying to like start learning how to cook and like take care of myself with food, and it was just so hard to figure it out. And I came across Michael Pollan. He's a journalist and food writer, and I think I read Omnivore's Dilemma first, and then this book was like, okay, this is a person who like he knows a lot about the topic, but he's also not trying to sell me something. Like he really wrote this book because people ask him all the time what to eat because they see him as an expert, and it was his way of like distilling his knowledge down. But he's not a dietitian, but he's also not like a chef. He's also not, some person with a diet. So I really feel like, okay, this is a guy who's informed, who's just trying to make the best decisions for himself like the rest of us. And so this book really helped me out. I'm going to tell you some of my favorite little tips he has. So his number one, like sort of the underpinning of his whole, I guess, philosophy is that you should, again, should operative, but eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And you might be like, okay, eat food. What does that even mean? So here's an example of one of his rules that kind of explains what he means by food. So it says avoid food products with the wordoid light or the terms low fat or non-fat in their names. Because here's the thing, I don't want to break your heart on this, but like, there was such a push for all these items. There still is, right? People just think, oh, low fat, like that's got to be better for me. Not necessarily. The way that products are made, low fat or diet and all these things, is typically they have to add in more sugar, and they have to add in more salt in order to like offset the fact because it doesn't taste as good because it doesn't have the fat in it, which is tasty and also like helpful for our bodies as well. And so it's not necessarily just healthier to eat that stuff. So that's one of his tips about like what does eating food mean. And this one has really stuck with me. This is a good kicker, is don't eat anything your great grandmother would not have recognized as food. So if you think about if you take a, Fuego bag of snacks or flaming hot Cheetos and put them in a bowl and handed them to, your great grandmother or your great great grandmother, are they going to be like, flaming hot Cheetos? No, they're not going to know what that is. And so I shy away from where he says don't eat it. I'm not looking at his rules as like I shouldn't. It's like, well, then I shouldn't have flaming hot Cheetos as much as I should have like, of an actual vegetable, right? That's just like a good sort of rule. And then the last one I'll share, which is a neat tip, is shop the peripheries of the supermarket and stay out of the middle. And that's because most supermarkets are laid out. And if you think about your local one that you go to, it's probably like this, where all of the dairy products and the vegetables and the produce is around the edge, and the middle is what has more of the processed stuff. So if you're like, look, I don't even know how to begin, we'll just try to spend more time in those outer areas and less with the processed food. So that is like what his advice is like. It's really simple. He gives reasons for it. Like I said, super short book. If you're interested, check it out. The second one, Intuitive Eating, a revolutionary program that works by Evelyn Tribble and Elise Risch. So, again, intuitive eating is deciding to trust your body to make the choices that feel good for you without judging yourself or the influence of diet culture. So, it's about not saying, oh, I have to eat breakfast because you're supposed to, or I'm not supposed to eat at this time and whatever. It's recognizing like, it's an individual choice, and what my body needs and what I need may be different than other people, and it may be different day to day. So it's not sort of forcing yourself into boxes. And so it was written by the pioneers of intuitive eating, and the book was published in 2003, so it's not a new idea now. The book itself, I will say, I'd give it like a 3 for or a 4 for content, excuse me, but like a 3 for the book. Like it's not, it's not super duper well written. And so what I would recommend if you're interested, just check it out at your library, peruse it. You can kind of skip around. There were some chunks that I actually skipped, or I skimmed it, like if the material is less relevant. So they do a lot of work talking about, specifically diets and eating disorders and things, and those have not been part of my life. So that wasn't like a section I needed. But overall, it just really, this is where I got the thing, and I think I said to Charles about treats or like fun food versus junk food. So it helped me think about food differently in a time where I really had gotten very myopic and like trying to eat the right thing and at the right time and all this kind of stuff. And this helped me sort of open back up a little bit and remember to, take into account myself and not just sort of these rules that were everywhere. And then the last one is my boy, Stanley Tucci. His book, Taste My Life Through Food. What a charmer. What a charmer this man is. So his book, it's his memoir, and it is filled with some fun Hollywood history, but also insights into his family life. It's actually, he wrote it during the pandemic. So you literally get like a day in the life of the Tucci's during the pandemic, which was interesting. And then many, 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 many Italian recipes of his family heritage. And, overall, what's fun about those is that, it reminds you that good ingredients don't take much to shine. Like, they're not complicated recipes. It's just using, the best stuff. And it's not complicated, but you're going to want to eat it all. Like, you're going to want to eat 400 million bowls of pasta. And that's okay because you can eat pasta because pasta, unless you have some intolerances, and then maybe you need lentil or chickpea pasta. It's cool. But he really emphasizes like eating for health, or sorry, not eating for health. He emphasizes eating for pleasure, eating for joy, eating for connection. And that really resonated with me. And I have to share this. This is from my review on Goodreads. I go back and read them to see what I said. I'm real proud of this wordplay, so I'm going to say this right now. Here's what I said. I said, this book is an enlightening look into a self assured, charming man that might make you look into yourself just a little bit and find more zest for life and zest for zesting. Oh, past Ashley. So silly. Okay. That is all I have to say about these books. And now we're going to transition to the end, baby girls and boys. I don't know what that was. I'm sorry. Today's episode, I love a little recap because life is busy and I want you to have something to take with you. So what the heck did we do today? In today's episode, Charles and I talked about food and nutrition and the overwhelming frustration of trying to understand what healthy eating means. We talked about the hot mess that was the 90s and 2000s diet culture, and that self-awareness and giving yourself grace is the name of the game, especially over the holidays. I also shared the concept of emotionally nutritious, which helped me remember not to only count calories, but eat what nurtures my heart and happiness. Charles said he is enjoying the book The Women of Troy by Pat Barker, but reserving judgment to the end. For Charles, I recommended a whopping 3 books, all by Emily St. John Mandel: Station 11, The Glass Hotel, and Sea of Tranquility. And if you pick them up, be sure to read them in that order. In unrequired reading, I talked about 3 books that have helped me on my journey to understanding food and nutrition: Food Rules, an Eater's Manual; Intuitive Eating, a revolutionary program that works; and Taste My Life in Food by America's Sweetheart, Stanley Tucci. And please follow and review wherever you pod, and join the Cheerberry on Instagram or Facebook by following me at the @Cheerberryan handle. That's where you can see resource links and other goodies, and talk to me, which I would love. Now go on, get out of here, eat something tasty, drink more water. Okay, bye!